Hello, friends. So, in our last lesson, of course, you remember that we learned how to add background and some borders to objects. So, today, going to want to talk about the selectors that'll make our job, well, a lot easier when we're designing a web page. Instead of writing the same things over and over again for structures that we're going to reuse because they have the same features, we just need to define them in one place. So, where do we define them? Well, I'll tell you in the application. For example, let's uh, let's make a list of the places that you need to see before you die. Hopefully, it'll take you a long time to see everything. Okay. So let's create a new file for this first. Now, first, let's have a look at where these places are. And, well, let's just take the first three: the Great Barrier Reef, Pyramids of Giza, Egypt, Stonehenge. All right, so let's create an unordered list that we previously learned in the HTML classes, right? You remember that. So to do this, we'll just use the UL tag first and then the LI tag for each line. So now I want to, we'll just describe a little bit more. One more thing. When describing web pages, of course, we don't write every single code in a single file. And now I'll show you how. So we will do certain things with CSS instead of writing them into this file. So we'll create a new file. And let's make all the edits that we're going to make in this file. So now, how will our main file be updated with the changes that we've made in this one? Well, by using the link tag. So then we get to our main file and add the link tag, and we're writing our file with the CSS extension in the href attribute. Now, the most important thing to note here is that these two files are in the same place, right? So now that our build is ready, we can go back to our original topic. So now here there are 3 lines on our current page. We'll add a border to all of these lines. Normally we would have to add borders on each line separately, right, like we did in the earlier lesson. But thanks to the selectors, we can just do this in one place. So we'll add this border to the file that we just created. And here we want to change all the lines, so we'll define the border inside the li tag. And make our border 4 pixels thick, and let's just make it blue. And save it and refresh the page to see what the result is. And as you can see, our blue borders of 4 pixels are added to each line. All right, so you might be scratching your head and thinking, do we have to do this process collectively? That is, do we have to assign the same properties to all lines or paragraphs? Well, of course, the answer is no, but that's where we'll need an ID selector. So let's do this again in the file that we created for edits. Now set just a name for ourselves. But the point here is that you've got to be careful that the name doesn't start with the number. Okay, so let's do this. Let's put a £sign at the head when writing this. And here, let's make the background color red for this, background red. And now it's time for, where do we want to apply this change? All right, so we want the first item of our list to have this feature. All right, you with me so far, right? So for this, let's just write ID equals select in the li tag where we created our first line. Save it to try and refresh our page. And as you can see, the change is only applied to the first line. So if we want to, we can make this adjustment for our second line. All we need to do is write the ID expression there as well. Well, then, okay. So what happened here? As you can see, the change is only applied to the first line. Yeah, unfortunately, the ID you can only use once for each page. So if we have a feature that we don't want to use in more than one place, for this, we can use class selectors. So we'll put a dot in this and write a name. So we'll add the feature that we want to add as we did in the ID selector. Now this time we'll just use the class instead of ID where we want to add this feature. So if you take this for an example, let's make our third article underlined. And let's add the underlined feature, which is the change we want in our CSS file. So for this, all we have to do is determine the underline name. And as I said earlier, we can just write this by putting a dot in front of it. Okay, so we'll write ext-decoration, underline, semicolon in our parentheses. Then after saving this file, we'll add it as a class attribute to the li tag in the third line where we want it to go, and then we can add it to our original file. Now we can save this file and refresh the page in our browser, and boom, there it is. The third line is underlined just as we wanted. Well, okay, just as I wanted, but I wanted to show you. All right, so in this lesson, we have seen the purpose as well as the types of CSS selectors according to what you want to do and in what kind of situations you get yourself into.